Welcome to yet another episode of Shit Badger Didn't Get to Say. Anyway, this last week's episode we talked about old people. And by old people, I mean people who are old. I made a couple comments that might make me seem gerophobic. And I guess you could actually say that. Number one, I don't want to get old. I'm afraid of getting old, of not being able to wipe my own ass. That's one thing I'm really afraid of. The other thing that I'm afraid of is just old people on the road. Old people doing things that they think they can do, but they really shouldn't. First, I'm going to start with the animal topics that we were talking about, and Nick made a comment. I'm not meaning to throw Nick under the bus, but he said, well, you can't tell an old dog from a young dog, and you can't tell a baby elephant from an adult elephant. Well, Nick, baby elephant, 2-year-old baby elephant is less than a half the size of an adult, and if it's male to male elephants you're comparing, the size difference is even greater. I'm just putting that out there. And dogs, most dogs, as they get older, they do get gray muzzles, they get gray in the face, just like we do. The rest of their body doesn't turn gray, but even if the dog is perfectly healthy and running around, scampering around, and whatever, they still get a lot of gray in their face, so you can tell. So just putting that out there. Love you, Nick. Old drivers, old people who drive. We've had a discussion talking about, should there be a test at a certain age to maintain your driver's license? I think absolutely. Some people have commented that they don't want old people with Alzheimer's, poor vision, dementia, going in and buying a gun. I think the same could be said for somebody wanting to drive a 3,000-pound vehicle. Even your compact cars now are 3,000 pounds. And most old people drive Buicks, and they're around 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. So can that be considered a deadly weapon in the hands of an incompetent driver? Absolutely. I live in a small town. I ride my motorcycle a lot around this town. I drive my car and truck around this town. And it seems, they always say that young women drivers are the worst. I'll give that to them. They do speed. Young women drivers do tend to speed, from what I've noticed over 30-some years of driving, having close to 1 million miles under my ass combined in vehicles driving. Young girls tend to drive fast, ignore stop signs, red lights, and they like to tailgate. But old drivers are the worst. A little personal experience. Hunter and I were in the car a couple weeks ago. We're moving into the left-hand. We're in the left-hand lane. Old lady has to be in her 80s or 90s in a huge Buick. On the right-hand side, she decides she's going to change lanes. Starts pulling right over into us. I'm honking my horn. Hunter's yelling out the window with a frantic look on his face. And she had no clue. She was absolutely clueless. She looked like she was in a world of her own. It looked like, I don't know if she thought she was driving a yacht, if she was on the SS Minnow, if she was still back on the Titanic, because that's how old she looked. I don't know what she was thinking. She had no clue. But she had no situational awareness of what was going on around her or her vehicle. She was an absolute danger to others and herself. Testing, yes, I believe it should be mandatory. At age 60, it should be once a year. Age 65, it should be twice a year. Age 70, it should be every 3 months. It's just nature. Our bodies break down. Our eyes get weaker. Our reflexes get slower. Our situational awareness becomes less. I've told many people, if I ever get to the point where I have trouble driving, I can't focus, I'm like some of these older drivers I see now, take my license, cut it up, and get me a bus card. And that is the issue. Most states do not have mandatory testing or a way to legally take driver's licenses. They can take your driver's license, let's say you're speeding, you run a stop sign, and you get a certain amount of points, or you get a DUI. But if you're just driving, if you're doing stupid things like missing people in lanes, not seeing them, doing erratic lane changes, not knowing what's around you, or thinking you're on the USS Lollipop while you're driving because you have dementia, There really isn't tickets for that. The courts really aren't set up to handle that. And the police and the Department of Transportation, they have no way of taking those licenses. And if a family member thinks that you're a danger to yourself or others, they have no way. I mean, they could go and through the courts and try to say you're incompetent and get power of attorney and things like that, but then they would have to put you in a home or have home health care workers coming in and have somebody to take care of you, and it's a whole mess. There's no simplified way for people to take driver's licenses away from old people. They say, well, you're infringing upon their rights. Well, what I've always been told is driving is a privilege. I've lived in many states over the years, and in every state when I've taken a test, the first thing in the book, it says driving in such and such state is a privilege, not a right. The Constitution does not mention driving or driving a horse-drawn buggy or riding a horse. It does not mention that. So if you are not competent enough to be behind the wheel of a 3,000, 5,000 pound death machine, there should be an easier way to take your license, but there's not. And I think that's a big problem we have. I think we hold old people to a higher level simply because they're old. We talked about this on the show. Should there be a respect? Yes, absolutely. They've seen a lot. They've been through a lot. They survived. They know a lot, especially the ones who have their wits about them. But just to give them special privileges and give them a break simply because they're old, I find that ignorant. I find that wrong. Just because they're old, they shouldn't get chances or get breaks. If they're driving incompetently, they should lose their license. Even if they haven't hurt anybody, haven't broken a law, haven't damaged anything. There's many drunk drivers who might weave and swerve on the way home, or miss a stop sign, or miss a stoplight, or might speed or drive slow, but they get home safely and they don't hurt anybody. Now, I'm not advocating drunk driving, but if that same driver just gets pulled over arbitrarily by a police officer, he's losing his license. That person is getting fined, they're having a criminal record, they're losing their license. If an old person is doing that, the officer will pull them over and probably tell them, be safe, ma'am, be safe, sir. It's kind of late, get home safe, blah, blah, blah. And the officer can't do a thing. He can't take that danger off the road. And that's the problem. I just wish there was an easier way to address this situation. And we talked about assisted suicide. If I ever get to the point where I can't wipe my own ass, and even if I don't have a plug installed, I want them to install a plug so they can pull it, so it'll end. I would never want to live past the point where I'm bedridden. I need somebody to turn me over so I don't get bed sore, somebody to place me on a bedpan and then wipe me. I don't consider that living. I consider that existing. And we talked about extending our lifespans. I think a lot of it will be rich people. They'll have the money, they'll have the means to get these pills, to get these medicines, to get these implants, to get these transplants to let them live longer. But I don't think the average person who has Obamacare, who has Medicare, who has Medicaid, is going to be able to afford, or it's going to be available to them. It's not going to be available to the general population to live to 120. Unless, of course, our masters of the New World Order finds a way that a 125-year-old can still work the machines that they need. Be just smart enough to work the machines, but dumb enough not to know any better. That being said, I don't have much more. I wasn't pissed off this week at all. I thought it was a great show. You guys did wonderful. Fern, you're doing great. You sounded perfect. Nick, as always, wonderful job. Dee, thank you for producing. I'm still waiting for that bushel of produce that you're supposedly a producer, but I still have yet to get it. That's it. Thank you guys for listening to Shit Badger Didn't Get to Say. Stay tuned. I'm gonna be off for 2 weeks because Nick is gonna be off for 2 weeks. Nick and Dee are gonna be off. No ignorance equation. I thank you guys for listening, and